I get asked a lot kind of what does a clinical scientist do in the NHS, and I always find it really difficult to answer because our job role is really varied depending on what specialism you're in, and even when you know what specialism someone's in, their job role can kind of take on quite a lot of different things within that as well. So I am a clinical scientist in radiotherapy. So I am involved in looking after the machines that we use to deliver radiotherapy for cancer patients. So they're the linear accelerators. So that's a lot of what I do day to day. Sure. So my name's Danny. I am from Wolverhampton. I grew up there and I went to school there, and all my family are still from the area. But when I finished school, I moved away to university, and I currently live in Manchester, which is where I'm working at the minute. I mean, it ultimately happened by accident, which I think a lot of people end up in careers like that sometimes. I just, when I was at school, I carried on doing things that I enjoyed and that I was good at, and I ended up going to university to do physics. And within that was a module called medical physics, which had a big focus on how physics translates into healthcare. So it was a lot of radiotherapy, ultrasound, diagnostic imaging, and things like that. And I really enjoyed the radiotherapy module, and I ended up doing a project in it. And I really enjoyed how the projects and the work that I completed in that, it was really easy to see how that was benefiting people. And I really enjoyed that about how I could kind of take my physics background into a role that was kind of, I could really see a direct impact that that was having on people. So kind of why I like it, and how I ended up in it. Yeah, I think because it's such a niche role, it's not like you're six and you're like, I want to be a clinical scientist in radiotherapy in the NHS. You have interest in that subject and kind of end up in it eventually. And I didn't even know that this was a job until I was halfway through my university course. So it's great that like things like this are getting the word out there that, hey, there's loads of scientists in the NHS that no one knows about, and we need people to be interested in these career paths. So there are like certain duties that need to kind of happen monthly, weekly, or however often they're scheduled for the general running of the department. But the job can be quite varied as well. So there are options for like research projects that are always really cool and interesting. There's opportunities for things like this, outreach events that I always really enjoy getting involved with. Trying to think what else really. You're generally encouraged to do anything that the department can see an advantage for you doing. So it's nice to kind of have an element of control over how you spend your time to a certain degree. So I am a really creative person. I love to paint and I love to craft and I love to sew, and I'm actually quite outdoorsy as well. Like I like going on hikes and stuff, which is not something that when people think of physicist, it's not something that they immediately put with what their idea of as a physicist. And I think that that kind of holds for at least many people that I've met in clinical scientist roles. And I think it attracts the sort of extroverted, introverted side of science, because we do have to be able to communicate in these big multidisciplinary teams that we're part of. So it's nice to have that in common with everyone. Like I haven't met a physicist that doesn't like, a medical physicist that doesn't like kind of getting out for a big hike on the weekend or wants to show you what they've baked or whatever. So I think just how the whole department has kind of come together as like a group has been almost inspiring. And my boss has been sending around every week this really cool newsletter where everyone has kind of wrote in with different articles, and it's lovely to read, and they're really fun and interesting to engage with. It's kind of almost sad that I learned things about people that I wouldn't have known if we'd have just carried on in the day-to-day world. So it's been really nice to see that and learn more about people in that way. And I think it's kind of made us feel a bit more engaged and like a team, even though we're all predominantly working from home at the minute. So for me personally, it's been a bit of a weird roller coaster up and down, because at the start of the pandemic, we didn't really know what was going to be going on. We didn't know if maybe members of staff would need to be redeployed because of their like specialty in equipment sort of safety criteria and things like that, and general management as a whole. So to start with, we were doing lots of kind of general admin tasks. We were kind of redeployed into different areas of the department, and a lot of our time was just taken up kind of freeing up other more qualified scientists to cover a broader range of their roles, because we had a lot of staff sicknesses. So it was good because it made me feel more of like part of the team, because when you're training, you can sometimes feel a little bit isolated because you're very focused on what you need to do. So that was a nice aspect. And then kind of after that sort of uncertainty died down a little bit, and it was apparent that probably we weren't going to be redeployed, and it was just kind of managing working in the department in the new normal. The focus has very much shifted to now you have to finish your training, because we were uncertain whether the kind of criteria would shift or whether we'd qualify a little bit later than we were supposed to. But now it's like, no, you are qualifying when we were originally said, because we need to ensure that we still get this wave of healthcare scientists into the NHS when they were supposed to be. So I have just been at home cracking on, trying to make up all the time that I lost, that was spent focusing on helping the department at the start. In general, for clinical scientists, I think a lot of it has been shifting to allow people to work from home more. But then we have also seen changes in how we are kind of delivering treatments as well, which I think has been really interesting. So, for example, a type of lung radiotherapy would generally be given if surgery wasn't an option for some patients, but because a lot of surgery is not going ahead, we're now treating those patients with radiotherapy. So I guess one good thing to come out from this would be we're going to be able to do some sort of studies on that and hopefully improve patient care because of it, which is great. And then we've also shortened some of our treatments based on trials that showed that they were kind of equivocal. So now we're being able to treat more patients going forward, which is great as well, which was also a benefit because it meant patients didn't have to come into the centre as often as they did before, so it was less risk. So yeah, I think some things will change and have changed and will continue to stay like that after things have kind of settled down a little bit. I think why it's important in general is it's mainly safety. Like we're dealing in this specialism, at least, with like high energy equipment that could be dangerous if it's not implemented properly and safely, and that is fundamentally our role, to make sure that it's safe and it's effective. And then kind of going that step further in terms of effectiveness, it's making sure that it's as optimal as it can be to make sure that we are delivering like top quality treatment, and it's always improving. And I guess how that has changed during the pandemic is it's kind of just evolved to make the best of a bad situation, really. We've looked at how we can implement things that are still good quality, and then going forward that might still be implemented in the NHS at a later date as well. I think it will be to a large extent. I think some people are working from home a little bit more now, which I think as a general population, it's something that people are looking forward to, having that time where they're allowed to work from home. In terms of sort of like the innovation and things that have happened throughout the pandemic, I think that isn't something that necessarily changes, because in this role you're expected to be innovative and you're expected to always kind of be pushing the boundaries of what's achievable. So I don't think that will change. I just think some of the things that we've implemented during this will kind of carry on after the pandemic. I think generally, actually, our workload has significantly reduced compared to normal practice, and some people have kind of hypothesized that this is due to referrals not happening as frequently as they normally would, or maybe possibly as well people not feeling comfortable to go to the GP and kind of putting it off and thinking, oh, I'll just wait until this has blown over a little bit. So I think it's important for people that are worried, you know, there are safety measures in place. So if you think that there's something wrong, you should be going to your GP and getting that sort of thing checked out. Oh yeah, for sure. So you kind of have to enter the hospital with a mask. You have to have your temperature checked. We also have these really swanky infrared cameras at the entrance to all our hospital entrances at the minute to kind of automatically check your temperature, which is a bit sci-fi. And then kind of at desks and stuff, general wiping down, and there's risk assessments as well in place for people that are at risk, or yeah, so I think people do feel supported that are coming into the department. It's just something that I'm not doing at the minute.